Welcome to the RISE Inside podcast, hosted by Justin Starbird and powered by RISE Robotics. Listen as host Justin talks to experts from the RISE team about topics relating to mechanical engineering, industrial design, commercialization, and innovation. True collaborations work when ideas are integrated at inception to solve significant problems. RISE Inside brings together how the team continues to work with great folks to commercialize ideas. You're listening to the RISE Inside podcast. Here's your host, Justin Starbird.
Welcome back to the RISE Inside podcast. My name is Justin Starbird, and I get to welcome back an old friend, Ken Gray, the Chief Product Officer for RISE Robotics. And Ken, actually, I'll let you introduce our guest today. I know we haven't done this in a little while where you and I interviewed somebody, but we have a good friend of yours on with us today.
We have one of my favorite people. We have Michele Sullivan on the line with us. And gosh, I could introduce you in a lot of different ways, but former president of the Caterpillar Foundation, longtime advocate trying to eliminate deep poverty in the world, and a longtime advocate for people with physical impairments. So, I mean, she wears a lot of hats, really close friend. Haven't had dinner in way too long, Michele. We got to fix that problem.
Yep, sounds good when you're in town.
You got it.
I like how we can make plans right here, and then have dinner together a little bit later. So
we'll take care of it.
Michele, there's so many things and so many ways to describe the work that you're doing. You're an inspirational speaker. You're a published author. You're also, as Ken mentioned, a social impact expert, and you've been the leader of several board of directors, and that still doesn't do justice to all the work and the accolades that you've received. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and how do you find time to do all these things?
Well, thank you. This is fun. Anytime I can do something like this topic with Ken Gray, it's always a lot of fun. His whole family is a dear friend of my family, so thank you. I had a fabulous 30-year career at Caterpillar, retiring at the end of 2018. So, wow, Ken, 3.5 years.
Unreal.
And, I did not have a typical career path at CAT. I was finishing up my master's and was co-oping at IBM full-time, and I knew I wanted to work at Caterpillar because in Peoria, with their headquarters being there at the time, and my dad working there, I knew I could have a really great career, a global career, different sections and topics that I could work on. And so as I started in IT and moved into marketing and parts and new product introductions, product support, dealers, and my dream job came available in 2011, which was the president of the Caterpillar Foundation, which is a philanthropic arm of the company. And it was started in 1952, and only 4 or 5 people had ever had that role since 2011. It doesn't turn over. So it's Ken would agree, one of the most wanted jobs at Caterpillar, because Caterpillar is incredibly generous. And it's a global reach. And so I interviewed, it's funny, I interviewed for my first job at CAD, and I interviewed for my last job, which was the foundation. Yep. Everything else, people would, who knew my work would come get me for different roles, which was great. But Caterpillar and the nonprofit space, social impact, is really my passions. And it brought those two passions together. And it was an unforgettable 7.5 years. We invested globally. We treated it like a business for the grants. We wanted ROI. I felt we owed that to the employees who helped make the company successful, and the dealers and the customers. And we could document that in that 7.5 years, we truly impacted at least 50 million people. And that was a conservative number.
Yeah.
And so with my retirement, you asked how I find time to keep things going. I retired full time. And my book came out called Looking Up. And that's really about, obviously for those that don't know, I am a little person and I stand 4 feet tall. So I look up to most people, but literally, but I also look up to people figuratively because I feel we all have value. And I speak on D&I speak on, inspiration and motivational, I speak on social impact and so forth, but it's all has a very common theme of, we need to walk beside people, especially in today's world. We're so divided. And I don't understand that, because when I was growing up, we were collaborative. People go, "Oh, Michele, you work at CAT, you're a Republican. Oh, you're with the foundation, you're a Democrat." And I go, "No, I'm a collaborator." I don't dig into the political party stuff. I think that's been a deep detriment to us, especially in these last years. And Ken is of the same mind. We need to work together on these global issues and also our national issues. And I think we have more in common than we think. And we don't have to agree on anything. I love a good debate. I don't like an argument, but I like a good debate. And I'm always open to that. And so it's been a good ride, and I continue my work as you talked about. I just got off a call with a group that's working in Africa on food insecurity.
Yep.
So that's important as well. We have that here in the United States, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's been a fun ride, and I just feel that we're supposed to leave this world a better place than we came, and so that's what I keep working on.
Well, you're certainly doing that, and leaving it a much better place than we found it. And here at RISE, we're celebrating not just some of your accomplishments, but we're also talking about this July being Disability Pride Month, and the opportunity to celebrate those that have disabilities, are in the workforce, are having success as it's important to them. We continue to hear profiles from our employees. Ken, you also have had success with disabilities, and this has been such a neat series for us to talk about, because it really shows that when you put your mind to it, anything is possible, and that everybody has the opportunity to be successful when they're also given support. And to your point, you're being walked next to, not looked down on. Ken, you want to talk
yeah. Well, the first of all, Justin, for at least you could have introduced me first. That would have been. How do you follow that?
Well, that's what I did. That's why I let you introduce her. You did get that opportunity.
I would say, started Caterpillar for many of the same reasons, the opportunity for a global career. And one of the things that you said just very resonated with me, Michele, and that one of the biggest lessons of my career is that in all my travels in the world, that one of the things I've learned is that people everywhere, no matter where they live, we share far more similarities than we do differences. Mm-hmm. And yet for some reason we accentuate the differences, which I've always found fascinating. And in my case, I've been reluctant to tell my story because you can't tell by looking at me that I have a significant vision impairment or any other hidden issues. And I've been very successful. So even people who are close to me would be surprised, I think, at how much I'm going to use the word, how much discrimination there has been, and in my career and in my lifetime. And I think that's amazing. It's still amazing to me, and it become more amazing to me that we don't recognize that diversity isn't valuable for diversity's sake, but it's from a business standpoint, it's simply more valuable when you have a diverse team. And the reason is their additional perspective and that people with diversities bring, and they also bring a problem-solving mentality that they had to get to these levels, to enjoy this level of success. You had to figure out how to solve problems on your own that others might not even perceive you were having. And so you have to be an innovator, a problem solver, just to get by. So there is this mentality that many successful people have with impairments that as a business person, as a leader, I want to take advantage of.
It teaches you resilience, doesn't it?
It really does.
And we've needed it these last 2.5 years.
We have.
Everybody.
The,
It prepares us, Ken.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Life
there
is
is
not
a
easy.
there is
Yeah.
an absolute no give up, relentless spirit that Michele has, and I like to think I have too. There's just absolutely no give up in people like this, and I think that's a tremendous benefit for companies to have access to people like that. And I'm not saying give people more, opportunities because they have a disability. What I'm actually suggesting is we just need to make sure that disabilities don't disqualify them for things that they can certainly do. The accommodation for Michele is pretty minor. The accommodation for me is, I need a big monitor in front of my face. That's about it, I think. So but I also recognize that, a lot of people are disqualified, and I don't even think it's conscious most of the time, Justin, that, you're looking for to fill a position and you find out that a person is fill in the blank, and you don't even consciously realize that you're excluding them because they're different than you are.
Well, let me ask you both this question then. Where does that confidence to, keep going when you've been told no, or you've been shot down, or you're passed over, or something, didn't break your way, and you're pretty certain that it was because of, as you mentioned, a preconceived notion, a judgment, or some other maybe even less nefarious thought, to achieve those goals. I mean, speaking with you, Michele, seeing you and reading about your accomplishments, seeing what you have just on the horizon, where did that, no give up attitude come from?
I write about that in the book. I get asked that question a lot, and I could say that about anybody, someone who's grew up in extreme poverty, or, we have that even here. Is it nature or nurture? That's always argument, right? And I do think it's a little bit of both. And, my parents told me I came out with the gift of gap. I don't know if that's the case, or if if I got used to it, Ken,
you started talking before you were walking.
Yeah, but I'm very comfortable, but I also know when someone's uncomfortable when they meet me or see me. So I don't know if I developed it more because I had to make people feel comfortable with me, or it wasn't going to work, right? Who's going to make the first move? So I have to make the first move. So I think it's a little bit of both, but also, if we have to depend on ourselves. I mean, you have to want something, and if you want it, you go get it. And also you bring people along to develop them, and then also people have brought us along and developed us. And rarely in life, if you think about it, think about one of your big successes or one of your small successes. Think about, did you do it all by yourself? And I can't think of one that I did all by myself.
Yep.
We always have people that help us. And I think it's important that we reciprocate that every chance we get. And that's one of the ways I say we have to leave the world a better place. You reach out to help people, offer to help, whatever that help is. And so my attitude is very much geared towards that. And then that's how I am for myself as well. I go after whatever I want, and sometimes it doesn't work out exactly like I thought, but I believe in fate. And sometimes I don't know why things happen, especially recently for me. I've had some things, but I have to trust that, it's meant to be. And what are you going to do? You can't just stop. You have to
work your way. You're going to work your way through it.
And keep going,
When I can't remember the last time, and I wonder if you feel the same way, Michele, I cannot remember the last time I thought that I might not be capable of something that I wanted to do. And in fact, I remember there's a story I tell my family often about visiting a famous retinal specialist in Southern California. This was a couple of 15 years ago, probably. Someone had never seen me before, and we went through this battery of day-long tests, that they just wiped me. That I've talked to you personally about wiping me out after these days of tests. And we sit in the consultation afterward, and he looks at me and he says, how functional are you? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I said,
did you joke
really,
and say, well, that's personal?
I did. I said, I did. I said, that's a really personal question. But he said, did you go to school? Did you graduate from high school? Did you graduate from college? Do you work? And he said, and I answered in the affirmative, all these things, of course. And he said, most people with your acuity are homebound. And I don't know. I think it is. I think that my dad probably was a lot of the nurturer. I remember him telling the superintendent of schools that, if we leave Kenny in a regular school, that he will learn how to compete. And so part of that is nurture, but part of it's probably also, genetic, that I guess you're predisposed to it. But I cannot remember the last time I set out to do something and thought that I might not be able to do it. I really can't.
I did when I was young, though, in school. I mean, people, and you really come to a pinnacle in your life where you really have to buckle down and go for it. And my parents absolutely, I give them all the credit, because they wanted to put me in a special school as well. And my parents said, absolutely not. And then I needed a lift on the school bus because the steps are so large, and, being so short, I had to basically climb on my knees up, which would work, but you do get dirty, and it's not the most, appealing thing to do in front of everybody. But to do that, and for the state to pay for the lift, they had to put me in special ed. They wanted to classify me as special ed. And obviously my parents knew I was on my way to college and everything. And they were like, no. So they, my mom dropped me off at school and went to work. And on the way home, the classes happened to correspond where my dad picked me up from high school every day. And so, you make adjustments like that, because there was no way, and special ed has a very unique place, which we absolutely need. But in today's world now, we're mainstreaming the people with disabilities, which I think is wonderful, because you get so much more acceptance. And also for the individuals, we're not limiting them in their education and their, what they can do and be successful. We all should be pushed and given opportunities regardless of our background, our abilities, or anything else. And then for those that do need different types of education, we absolutely should accommodate everything and give them whatever they need to be whatever success is to them. And so, I think it is different today. They have those AEPs and so forth that are individualized, which I think is wonderful. And if you look at how successful a lot of the traditional categories of people, that we didn't think they could, thrive, they're thriving, because they're just like us. They want to be what they call successful, and that's different for each of us. So I definitely think we've changed some. We have a long way to go, but I definitely think we made some progress since Ken and I were children, quite a few decades ago.
I really think I was afraid, and my parents were afraid that I would be labeled as something.
Yeah, we are labeled. We are labeled.
Michele, I'm very sensitive to some phrases that are common, right? The blind is something that drives me. I don't want the disability first. I want the person first. So you said it very well. You're talking about people with disabilities. I want the person first, because everyone with a disability is an individual. We all have individual needs, individual aspirations, individual definitions of success, and I think it's incredibly important to keep individuals first and
Yes.
recognize that they're somehow informed by their disability, but they're rarely limited
Yep.
unless we choose to limit them.
Yep. You know, it's interesting. A friend of mine, their daughter was in first grade and she wanted to have a friend over. And so her mom said, yeah, have her mom bring her over. Because she talks about her all the time in school. And so the daughter's friend comes over with her mom and she's in a wheelchair. That never
Right.
came up. Never
Yeah.
came up. And
Perfect.
it's perfect. Like, I'm not a dwarf and my name's Michele. Like, I never introduced myself like that, or that, hey, I'm Michele and I'm a dwarf. Obviously, you can see that. Have nothing to do with anything else. And you can, once people find out, by looking at King, you'd never know what his challenges are.
Right.
And, when you choose to talk about it, great. But it doesn't, label you. And that, if you notice the stories I said about my parents, whether it was taking me to the school of special ed or to get aid from the state, you have to classify people as special ed, which back in the day, as Ken knows, that would limit you from getting into college. That would discount
Right.
you right away.
Right.
And what is special ed? We all need help. If you think about it, not everybody's great in math. Not everybody's great in science. So it's all in how we, talk about it. And, we all have our challenges. So we just need to, get people thinking, first let's take care of the person. And I think mainstreaming has gone a long way.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
And
this-
you never know what's inside, Justin. Right. I
Well,
mean,
Yeah.
you don't know, you mentioned that you can't tell by looking at me that I have any issues. Well, my wife has called that my ability to lie on demand in the past, but but you don't know what's inside. And I think part of what we could do better as society and need to do better is recognize that we can't appreciate the experience that the other person is experiencing. We just don't know what's going on in lives. And I think we jump to conclusions and kind of assess the situation by our own experience, and that's pretty limiting view of the world. And so I think I do feel that part of the message that I want people to understand is that people with a disability like mine or other disabilities that people can't see from the outside looking in, that you can be successful, and all that you need is an opportunity to be successful. And if you want it, you can make it happen.
Well, that's what this month
And
is,
then like
too. I'll just jump in real quick, because this month is that
Yeah.
is that Pride Month. It's not Disability Awareness Month.
Yeah.
It's actually celebrating the success of folks with disabilities, and it's being prideful of how far they've come. And to your point, Michele, about mainstreaming, it really it became a big deal after 1990 when G.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act. And this is such a neat thing that both of you are bringing up, because you're talking about accentuating the features that make the person unique and celebrate their
Right.
opportunities to, right now we're talking about occupational, successes to some degree. And you've each had the opportunity throughout your career, in this case, Caterpillar, and now Ken with RISE Robotics, the opportunity to work with peers that see you for the talent that you're bringing to an organization. And when did that change, or when did you each see, not just that employers were taking you serious, but where it no longer became an issue, or is that something that you even had to face?
Well, Michele couldn't hide, right? I mean, I could. And so I think the change was gradual, but I'll be very transparent with everyone that I worked very hard to hide my disability as long as I could. And because I didn't want to be labeled, I didn't want to be diminished, I didn't want opportunities to be taken away. But in a work environment, my immediate work group knew, they needed to know And so I made sure that everybody knew. During the interview process, it was very important to me that anyone who interviewed me for a role knew. Because some accommodation was required. And I famously, and I don't mean this to cast any, I still bleed yellow. And I was sent home on the first day that I went to work, and the doctor that did my physical on day one said, "Well, Ken, we knew during the interview process that your eyesight was bad." And he paused, "But we didn't know it was this bad." And they literally sent me home. They didn't have a job for me. So that we went from that over time to me being, a director of the company, and I ran, a couple of large worldwide businesses for the last 10 years of my career. And we went from that gradual change over time to, rewarding and promoting on the basis of performance. I was always extremely cautious, though, until I became a director, about really coming out blind, about telling people that I had issues broadly, and the purpose was to share with people that, you really can be successful no matter what disability you face. I really think that no matter what you might believe is an overgeneralization. I personally don't. I believe you can figure it out. If you want something bad enough, and I grew up like Michele, wanting to work for Caterpillar my whole life, I got my dream job in 2009. Which was running the large excavator business worldwide. I love that job, and that was what I always wanted to do. And I firmly believe that people are capable of doing whatever it is they set out to do, regardless of the disability they might manage.
Ken, I think all of this applies to inclusion as well. This is not just a disability. Whether that you can be yourself, whether it's, gender or race or religion or whatever it is that you think makes you have to watch, which we both understand. Ken and I both understand that. I couldn't hide mine. I mean, for them to hire a little person on crutches 35 years ago at Caterpillar, that was highly unusual. And I give a lot of credit to the man who hired me, Chuck Williams. And, he was very open-minded. And, did I have challenges with people? Of course, we all did, though. And the people who don't have a disability have challenges with people. So, and Ken talked about, that supporting people. In my TED Talk, Ken, I call that, you can't walk in somebody else's shoes, but you can walk along with them and support them. And that's what people have done for us. And that's what we've done for other people for many reasons. And at the end of the day, that's called humanity. And, but also once you've experienced something, it really opens your eyes to what that person goes through, whatever it is they're dealing with. And we have a lot of challenges in our society right now that people think they know and they don't, and they're not open-minded. And we really have to work on that, and not be so judgmental, because no matter where you go in the world, people want to thrive. They want to support their family. They want to be successful. No matter what group I work on, social impact wise, they all want the same thing. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that's, where we go. And, Ken and I talk about that a lot. We've worked hard. People have been supportive of us and vice versa. And we continue to spread that.
Yeah, no, it's you each have incredible stories, and I've been fortunate.
Over a glass of wine, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that right there. That's a more exclusive club. That's. Yeah, someday, Justin, we'll get to a point where we're so inclusive that we don't have to have conversations like this, and that's where Michele and I really want to get. We talked about gradual change. It is gradual, but it is changing. It is improving. And
Mhm.
you know, we want to talk about this because we just want to continue to encourage and support and reward that change toward more and more inclusiveness.
Well,
As an example, did you guys see that the Paralympics was on TV
right.
Did.
on the main channel?
Mhm.
I mean, women's basketball and you know, during Pride Month, all the things that go on to support that. And also, you know, Black History Month, you name it, we have something for everybody sometime during the year, and multiple usually. And it brings
True.
awareness, which I think I learn a lot. I read all that stuff
Yeah.
because, you know, I don't have experience in a lot of things, and I want to be able to understand it and also be incredibly inclusive of it, because I like change. I like people with different cultures, and you learn about it. And, you know, as I've traveled, that's what excites me the most.
Well, we're talking with Michele Sullivan and Ken Gray of RISE Robotics. Ken, you and I, you know, are really close with RISE now. You're the chief product officer, and you know, the next question I have for the two of you is, what can you do to make employers more aware of the opportunities that are out there? I mean, I think this is really exciting that we have a platform to be on a company supported podcast talking about this, but what can others do? Because we're listening, you know, people are listening to this from all over the world. They you know, folks that are in the heavy machinery space, you know, this is an area that's always had some challenges, you know, making concessions or accommodations, and that's, you know, could be for a number of reasons. But, you know, what can we do to help other employers see the opportunity there?
Well, I think, as I said once before, I'll just, at the risk of being redundant, you know, we want diverse workforces because they are more productive, more effective. And so I think if you're looking around the room and everybody looks like you and has the same background as you, you're not doing everything that you can do for your business to be as effective and profitable as it can be. And, you know, you need to be, you know, if you're seeing that around the room, then, you know, furthering your company's mission, you need to be thinking about, how do I make the thought processes more diverse in my team? And it's gender, it's race, it's gosh, it's thought, it's so many factors play into what makes up a diverse work team. So I just encourage people to hire people who are not like themselves. You know, make yourself look at, what can I do to bring someone onto the team that has an experience or experiences or skill set that I simply do not have.
Leaders are not the smartest people on the team. I surrounded myself by people who had a dimension that I did not have and that the team needed. And whether it was how they were raised, or did they pay their way through college themselves, did they have 3 jobs? Like, how people grow up alone makes them different. And Ken and I have discussed that a lot. You know, where in the world have they grown up in what circumstances, and what experiences have they had? And, you know, someone who worked their way up themselves, and I mean truly themselves, and someone who had college paid for, never worked, and then going out for their first job, those two people are going to have vastly different perspectives. And when I interviewed, and Ken knows, I get in trouble with HR because I'd never go through the standard questions. I would ask them about things about college or growing up, and it tells you a lot about a person's gumption and initiative, and what do they do when something doesn't go right? Like, do they panic, or do you make the best of it and really come out successful in a different way? And it taught them something. And I always tell my team when we would interview, like Ken said, if everybody has the same background and looks like us, I don't have the right team. my team was very diverse in many ways. And I needed a global team. That's what our work was. And then the products, you need people who use the products differently. They have a different perspective than others on what it should be, like the options and so forth that you can put on, or, what do they need? Ken needs certain things so that he can see. He can't see colors very well. And, what do we have for people like that? The machines, Ken, they have different types of terrain. So you had to make different types of track, et cetera. And
Yeah,
that machine, it just opens.
That
Yeah,
machine's
it
fine
opens
for
up a
him, but
market.
that machine's fine for him, but it won't work in my dirt.
Right,
Every
exactly.
time
That's
I've heard
right.
that.
And it opened up a whole new market, didn't it?
It did. It did.
Yeah. So it's
Opening
really
up our eyes to
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So, we could go on and on and on, Justin, if you, we'll just monopolize the time as long. And I know that we've got to watch Michelle's time, but before we end, I just wanted to say that you're awesome, my friend. Thank you for joining me to do this today.
Yeah, we're all people, aren't we? And we all want to be wanted. We all want to contribute in some way that we can contribute. What I find interesting, you've heard a lot of companies, Ford is one of them, that has really recruited people with autism because they have so many unique ways of thinking and seeing different data, et cetera. And they put them in these roles where they're just thriving. Like you and I wouldn't look at the data like that. And yet they have a totally different perspective. And they, you can't just sit back and wait for somebody who has some challenge, whatever it is, to come knocking on your door. Justin, you asked, what can companies do? You do have to go out and learn about different associations, learn about career programs that, when you're going to a college campus or some type of workshop or to hire, you ask about, I want to make sure I have diversity in my possible candidates. And you tell people that, if you have headhunters, by the way, I don't want you to send me all one type of person. I want a vast difference in thought, ability, everything. And don't give me just the same type of people, because that's not what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And you have to go out and make an effort. The companies, they're not going to come knocking on your door.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
You have to force it.
And you've got to make people aware that you're accommodating and welcoming too, right? I mean, that's
absolutely.
Those are
hey, this is what we're looking for. We want you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might be the biggest piece that, in my experience, employers miss is the opportunity to put themselves out there, to be vulnerable, to say, hey, we're looking for this. We want to try this, and we're looking forward to what comes.
Yeah, yeah.
The other piece is affinity groups within companies. In a way, I like them. In a way, I don't, because whatever affinity group that you go into, you have to be open and welcome everybody, not just the people with whatever affinity you're targeting. So I would visit a lot of the affinity groups, Ken. Remember, we had China, LGBT, women, we had them all. And it's important that you don't exclude, because people can get in a clique too who have, whatever you connect with. And it's important that you welcome people in to learn about that. And so, I visited a lot of the affinity group events so that I could learn more about it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point too, is that, that continues with that whole, you putting yourself out there and doing your own homework about, what fits in your culture.
It's scary though, Justin. Yeah. In my book, I write about that, Ken, putting your guard down.
Vulnerability is high risk, isn't it? I mean, it is being, showing that you're vulnerable is a high risk, high reward proposition.
I mean, when I got the president of the foundation, a very visible position, I felt the weight of the world because I didn't want to fail. And then, they never look at someone like myself again. And, the CEO picks that role. You really don't want to fail.
Right.
And yet when you succeed, then everybody's like, oh, well, I knew that. Yeah, I knew
right.
that, right?
Right.
And so it works both ways. And it's very exciting, go after it, whatever your situation is, and get support. You're not in it by yourself. And, I was in a public bathroom, and a blind lady walked in, Ken, with a cane. And it was kind of one of those bathrooms where you kind of had to make a couple jogs so that
Right.
when the door opened, they couldn't see in. And so I waited because I'm not good at directions anyway. So I come out and I got to look through, I go left or right. So I can't imagine what she was doing when she came to find the door. And I waited, and I asked her if she, needed help, because I didn't want her stuck in there. I've been stuck in public bathrooms because I can't reach the door handle to get out. I didn't want her to, be in that situation. And so she almost made it out. There was an extra jog. And so I just, talked her through it. But, you just step in and ask, and they'll tell you whatever it is, if they need you. And that's both emotionally, if you don't have a disability, but another type of challenge. A lot of people have anxiety, Ken and Justin. They maybe don't have a real good self-esteem, and all of that you can't see, but it can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to reach out.
Well, yeah, it goes back to that vulnerability. And I think one of the things that each of you have done is made yourselves vulnerable. You took the risk to do that. You took a risk to put yourself in a position where they could have said no. You put yourself in a position where they did say no, and you kept going. And for both of those things, I'm appreciative to have this opportunity to hear your stories, to profile the successes that you've had, and also hear ways in which that there are areas for improvement, both for the culture and employers alike. I think they each go a long way. So, with that, Michele Sullivan, thank you so much for joining me. Ken Gray, I appreciate your participation as always.
I'm very grateful to you both.
Thank you. Again, you're awesome, Michele. And thanks for having us, Justin.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's do it again. Okay. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the latest episode of the Rise Inside podcast. On behalf of Michele Sullivan and Ken Gray, my name is Justin Starbird.
You have been listening to the Rise Inside podcast, presented by RISE Robotics. On behalf of our guest today and host Justin Starbird, thank you for listening. Please share your feedback on our LinkedIn page, linkedin.com/company/rise-robotics.